Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of Vechain, taking a look at what's been going on most recently and what we think is likely to happen next. We'll be taking a look at Vechain paired up with USDT on the daily time frame, and we'll be using Binance as our data source. We'll be taking a look at a few different things such as smart money concepts, Elliott wave theory, and a few other things like support resistance lines, trend lines, and all that kind of usual stuff. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, check it out, linked in the description down below. I don't think you'll regret it. Let's jump right down into this one. We'll start things off with this view here. Okay, this is like the most bearish, and we'll kind of just work our way a little bit further forward, a little bit at a time. So here we can see that we have been tracking this very interesting structured move to the downside, where we do have a pretty deep low level for Vechain, at least the potential for Vechain to drop down into those lows, right? So as you can kind of see here, we have actually come down and overextended what you would normally expect from just like a WXY or an A, B, and C. And what this usually leads to is an X and a Z wave. So we take that WXY and then we go WXY, X, and Z. Okay, and that view actually takes us down pretty deep. Now, it has the potential to go down pretty deep, but the Z wave in itself is actually quite broad. It can be so many different structures that it actually has a lot of different outputs, and specifically the fib levels is which is what we're going to reference, right? It can be anywhere from 0.618 times that of the W wave, or up to 1.236 times that of the W wave. This basically means that Vechain could potentially come down to between 0.00407 and 0.01151. Now, essentially 1.1 cent does seem like a pretty interesting level, some area that I do think is pretty nice to kind of be thinking about. Our current structured move to the downside here gives me a little bit of reason for concern. We are potentially in some kind of impulsive structured move, so we could be ending in a 5-wave structure or some kind of zigzag. So we're going to be keeping a close eye on this, right? So as we take a look at this on the daily time frame, we peaked out up here in the 20th of February. We've slid down, we've moved up a little bit here, and we're starting to come back down again. It's possible as well to just note that we haven't yet finished this move to the upside. It's possible that this actually turns into a zigzag structure, but in order for that to happen, we do have to first move down a fraction more. Okay, we can't go straight up in my opinion, but we are doing a pretty bullish setup here on the kind of smaller, if we zoom in and we look at the smaller kind of time frame. Even though we're on the daily here, just taking a subsection of the daily chart, we can acknowledge that we are doing something that is usually pretty bullish, which essentially is the ability to have these lower highs and lower lows, right? We can see these here. These have a tendency to break upwards, but before we have a break upwards, I do think we have to be testing the lower range of this once again. So let me show you what I think here. So we have this high, we have this original low. So if I take that low point and I take that high point just here, and we move this over to our bounce, which was at this point, we can see that we have almost come down to where we need to, but we're not quite there yet. Okay, our low range would be right in here. It'll essentially be between 2.041 cent and 2.121 cent. And it's possible to say that we can acknowledge that we've kind of done the minimum expectation. We kind of have crossed down to the minimum expectation level, but we're not necessarily there just yet. So we'll keep a close eye on that. We'll see how it plays out. We could come down, just test this range one more time before we have that move upwards. So I'm going to leave that there. You can kind of see how we have a potential move, just one more down, lower a little bit down, and then we can move on up, right? So currently we're 2.261. We can go down to 2.121, and we could be pretty much well there, good to go from there. So if we were to think about that, how high do we push on this relief rally? Well, if I were to take the 2.121, then we could be talking about 2.7 before we start to talk about that next move down. Well, let's actually be a little bit more specific. It would be 2.768 through to about 2.947. Okay, so we can kind of see that right in there with that potential. So I'm going to just pull that in there, put that there, and remove that one. So essentially, what do we look at? Well, we're looking at a potential move down. Doesn't have to happen, but we should acknowledge that it's still possible that we do. Confirmation that we're done with this, by the way, would be up here once we push past 2.531. But my expectation is that we still have to come down a little ways and then break out of here and get a bigger move up there. Again, nothing moves in straight lines. It could be a couple of different things. We could be tracking 5 waves up there, or alternatively, we could just be tracking 3 waves up there, okay? But up there is generally where I would expect price to go. Now, of course, if we were to reflect on that, we do see here is that this is a part of a bigger breakdown, and we do have this interesting structure here that looks like it's very impulsive in the way that it fell to the downside. Okay, now still possible that if we don't do this and we just break down for whatever reason, let's say crypto just breaks down and Vechain follows, then we can, of course, acknowledge that we've got going on here is a much bigger situation like that, right? But I don't think that's something that we can focus in on right away. We do some sense checks just to see whether or not we hit the right fib levels. We do hit the right fib levels for that, so we should consider that as a viable option as well. But the setup here looks like we are potentially in a zigzag pattern here, and so essentially it looks like we are probably going to be doing something like this, and we have to still come down deeper after we have this relief rally to the upside. So I'm going to keep a close eye on that. It's potential zigzag as we have a micro movement in there. I'll go ahead and put this onto the lower side. This gives us the worst case scenario, which will show us coming down into a little bit lower range here, which basically would be 1.461 to 1.651. So overall, we can kind of get a good idea as to kind of what our expectations are here with Vechain, at least on these kind of daily moves that we've recently been seeing, such as something like this. So expect some volatility, but of course you haven't even touched into this lower range yet, so all of those movements there, as we kind of zoom out further, can also be wrapped up in a bigger kind of move that gets us into that range. So we'll park that for now. We have our kind of immediate targets to kind of be thinking about over the next maybe 3-4 weeks or so. It's going to take some time to kind of play out, so we'll see how that kind of works. Let's jump on over into smart money concepts. What is the case here? What's going on? Still bearish, yes. We've had no change of characterization, which means everything is still in a bearish state of play from smart money concepts. That hasn't changed. As we kind of zoom in on here, nothing has changed from the last time we looked at this. We are still targeting slightly deeper onto this, so we're talking about moving down to 1.222 or 1.474. That hasn't changed. We are, of course, looking at this same setup. We still have that potential break upwards, but we are finding resistance on the 200 EMA on the daily. Also getting rejected from equilibrium here, so it's very, very bearish here on the smart money concept. So although Elliott wave theory kind of looks at this and says, look, we can still push up a little bit higher, smart money concept says be cautious here. It doesn't look overly bullish. We are in a macro play here, so shorting the market is still the thing that smart money concepts kind of looks at. Essentially though, I do think Elliott wave theory is more accurate here on this one, because we do see not only Elliott wave theory in the wave counts indicating that we do have that slight push down, but ultimately a break upwards to occur, but we can also see that we have the lower highs and the lower lows, which typically also break upwards as well. But I don't disagree with smart money concepts on a bigger macro piece. It is incredibly bearish overall, and we should be thinking about the move to the downside. We can also acknowledge that we do have a strong high unlikely to get broken, and we have a weak low likely to get broken. So we do know that there's still a very much a bearish play here for Vechain. So looking to scoop some up, I do think that we are going to have to be patient, but at some point in the very near future, probably over the next few months, we should be introducing some pretty cheap level pricing for Vechain, which I think will be fantastic opportunity to get more and fill those bags ahead of the bullish market for VET. Now, as we kind of take a look at this, we do see obviously very similar areas that we were talking about before, 1.231 to 1.484. That hasn't changed. All of that's looking pretty good. Our main areas of kind of focus are to kind of really think about that 2-cent range, and whether or not we're going to be able to push up into that 2.7-cent range, right? So I think we're going to be keeping a close eye on things ultimately for Vechain here, and I'm looking forward to kind of looking at these price movements and basically looking to kind of scoop up some cheaper Vechain. Every angle that I take a look at this on, it does appear that we have a bit of a bearish play. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these key areas for us, right? So if we take a look at the support levels at the moment, we're talking about 2 cent as being our major level of support. We can see that right in there. The second that we do lose this, we are going to have to talk about jumping down more towards 1.74. That's going to be the next key area for us, and once that is gone and we lose that one, we are of course talking about 1.533, and that's going to be incredibly weak as well. So you can kind of see how these areas are stacking up, and all of that kind of stuff. At the moment, we are of course trying to find support levels right in here. In fact, I can find this one, I think right here is being our most accurate. This one comes in at 2.154. This is an area that we consolidated on quite heavily during the latter part of 2022. This also happens to be where we're trying to find support on right now, and that might be what takes us up into that next range where we're going to find those resistances. Those resistances are, of course, you know, coming up more towards 2.4, and as we kind of push up past 2.4, we are going to be talking about 2.6, and then of course just above that we are going to hit into the 2.8 cent. There's a lot of resistance up here. Major resistance I think is really going to come in at 2.657, so we should be keeping a close eye on that. What I'll do is I'll make these resistance lines red so we know that they're resistance, and we'll make those all in there as well so we can kind of watch how price reacts to those, and on the low side I'll leave those as white as they're acting as support levels. So hopefully that gives us a little bit of an insight, and you can kind of see the numbers here, kind of where the resistances are, where the support levels are, and also, you know, what I'm thinking from smart money concepts and what I'm thinking about when it look at Elliott wave theory. I think that smart money concepts is right on the nose. It is a very much a bearish state of play for Vechain. Elliott wave theory gives us a little bit of hopium on the fact that nothing moves in straight lines, and we should be thinking about some kind of move upwards before we can continue our move to the downside. But ultimately everything here is quite encouraging. I think this is going to give fantastic opportunities for many retail investors to continue to build those positions in Vechain, whether you're trying to go for 500,000 bag, whether it's a million bag, maybe you're only looking to try to get 10,000, 20,000, whatever your budget is. I think this is going to cater for a lot of people's needs and requirements when it comes to the price action of Vechain. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Interested to kind of canvas what everyone thinks the price action of Vechain is going to be over the next kind of 3 months or so. If you found this useful and informative, smash the like button. Do appreciate that. If you're new, subscribe. Don't forget to join us down in Discord, and guys, I'll catch you all in the next one.
We are not financial advisors. None of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.